We go in three, two, one.
All right, what is up, you all? Welcome back to the Vol Talk podcast. I'm Blake. You've got Austin over there on the other screen.
Yes, sir.
And y'all, welcome back. A nice episode for you tonight, a nice follow-up. This is post Kent State. We are going to be reviewing the Tennessee Volunteers versus Kent State Golden Flashes. And Austin, I think we've got some apologies to make. And it ain't to Kent State.
Nope.
Um, we're going to get to that here in a minute. But first of all, you all, we want to thank you for those of you who have been subscribing, listening. Austin made a short of a great clip from our game preview against Kent State, which was a hilarious episode, by the way. We loved making it. It was a good episode. Got a buddy of mine in on it, a buddy of mine, Michael, who's a Kent State alum, got him in it. A lot of good fun, and we made a short, and it's up to like what 800 views or something, Austin.
Yeah, man.
So that's pretty cool for just bum Austin and Blake with this production quality that we're working with. So we appreciate y'all checking that out. And hey, y'all, the next person that subscribes, Austin tells me, will be number 20.
Number
Be up to
20, baby.
number 20 in basically about a month, which is pretty cool. Um, we're
It's
not
better
following
than
up like this.
zero.
It's better than zero, man. It's better than, well, two, right? Me and you subscribing.
Hey,
Um,
hey, 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 hey. Don't tell people that. They don't know that.
oh, right. You're right. Um, this is the only YouTube account we've ever made, period.
Yeah, exactly. We're new.
Yeah, we're new to the concept of YouTube, actually, clearly.
Yeah,
That's how
totally,
bad these
dude.
videos are.
Blake is freezing a little bit. I'll
Well,
fill the dead
if
air.
you're enjoying the conversations that we're having, we want you to be a part of the conversation. We want to build up this podcast with you all. Right now, I'm still out of town, so that's
Hmm.
why it is voice call or video call, I should say. We will typically be in person in that room Austin is in. Okay. So we'll typically be there. But Yeah, well, we hope you all will hop on this journey with us. So subscribe, please like the video, please comment on the video, share the video. Please do that for us. And
Bro.
I tell you what, last night against Kent State was pretty fun.
Yeah, man. Number one thing I took away from the game is that kind of what we were talking about in the Kent State preview a little bit, which is, I mean, we've seen it time and time again this year throughout college football. Some of these great teams have uh, occasionally slipped up in these games, dude. I mean, games that they're favored by multiple touchdowns. They either look really bad and the teams take them into the fourth quarter, or they lose the game. We saw that with Notre Dame and Northern Illinois. It's very possible, happens all the time. And yes, Kent State might be the worst team in college football. We all have to admit that at this point, but we didn't slip up, man. We could have easily looked past this team, and we could have easily looked forward to Oklahoma and not brought our A game. But, dude, I mean, it shows the maturity of the team that not only did the starters play hard the entire time they were in, but the backups played hard the entire time they were in, dude. Um, Most dominant football game I've ever seen, literally. I mean, and I'll share some stats later in the show to back that up. Um, but quite literally the most dominant performance in the modern era of football, especially for Tennessee football, dude. I mean, that's what the game was.
And we love to see it. It was a fun game. We scored 65 and we scored 37 in a quarter.
Correct.
Um, Man, it was fun. So we're gonna talk about all this. We're gonna talk about those stats. We're gonna talk about the offense. We're gonna talk about the defense. Um, we're gonna talk about the records that were broken, kind of all that good stuff. And then again, I think Austin, I think we do need to go on a bit of an apology tour. And I think we need to apologize they were going to give up some points against Kent State, and that we predict. In fact, our clip, our short that you put out, you predicted a score of 55
Yes, 55-3.
on your prediction.
So yeah, I mean, basically, listen, man, I was just trying to get on the good side of Kent State fans, okay, and I didn't want to, because listen, 55-3 that's not a close score. That had us covering the spread. That had us not giving up a touchdown, and apparently that was still very, very generous. I mean, it was one of those games where if Josh Heupel wanted to score 150 points, he could have scored 150 points. There was nothing stopping him. Kent State was not in his way. I mean, we played our
No.
fifth string quarterback at the end of the game, bro. Fifth string.
I saw that. I didn't even know we had a fifth string. I knew we had Gaston Moore as the backup. We had Merklinger at third string. I knew we still had Navy Schuler. I had no idea we had a fifth string quarterback. I mean, what is he? A walk on? Is he typically the placeholder? I mean,
I don't know,
or the
man.
kicker? That's crazy. Yeah. So pretty crazy game. Out of the way, right? Um, we know it's Kent State. I even said in the preview that Kent State might be still the worst team in college
No, no, stop. You didn't say might. You said they are the worst team in college football. You definitively said Kent State is the worst team in college football.
football.
That's why I had to apologize to Kent State fans. But
I,
you were proven right.
I, I was. The vindication came, right? But I said it because my buddy, a Kent State alum, Michael, shout out to Michael. By the way, this is just a ploy to get him and his friends to subscribe. Um, that's what he told me. I was simply reiterating what a Kent State fan told me.
That's fair.
Okay. So, anyway, so we get it. It's Kent State, right? We get it. But to Austin's point, right, like you were saying, other teams struggle in games like this. And Tennessee teams in the past
Oh
have
yeah,
struggled.
exactly. I mean, a lot of Tennessee fans are bringing that up online. How, hey, a lot of people don't understand why we celebrate games like this. It's because we've had coaches who lose games like this or take those games into the
Yep.
fourth quarter. So the fact that we have a coach now that has clearly created a culture that keeps his team focused, like he's clearly made that kind of culture that, hey, and he even said this in the halftime interview that I want to quote him, and a quote that he had that I thought was absolutely savage. But basically, dude, he's created a culture that, hey, we're focused on this week, dude. We're not focused on next week because the fan base, we're looking forward to Oklahoma, bro. We've been looking forward to Oklahoma since week one. At the end of the day, I mean, everyone expected to be 3-0 at this point in the fan base. We've had that game in Norman circled all season long. The team can't do that. The team can't do that, and they haven't. And it shows a maturity to the team. So to go back to that quote that I was referring to earlier, during halftime, Cole Kublik was interviewing Josh Heupel, and Heupel basically said that he's basically told the team that the opponent is faceless and nameless. Nameless opponent, faceless opponent. It's just another opponent. It's about us. It's not about them. Kind of mentality, and that's how they played, dude. I mean, 65-0 in the first half. It's clearly how they played the game, and that kind of mindset, dude. That's how you continue to sustain success throughout a season. And hopefully, hopefully that plays into next week and the rest of the year, man. But it's just, yeah, man, it's just a great culture he's created. That's the biggest takeaway, overall for me is that, hey, we could have slipped up in this game. We didn't. We took care of business, and I'm really thankful now that we have a coach that takes care of business in games like this.
100%. I mean, that's what and it's funny, right? Because we see hate online of like, people saying he's running up the score, people talking about the onside kick, which we'll talk about, and it's like these people aren't, I don't know if they don't know football or if they're just haters or what, but it's like, with the we're looking at it, I'm like, heck yeah, let's get an in-game rep. I don't care that we're up 30-0 in the first quarter. Let's
100%,
get
dude.
an in-game rep for a situation where we want to execute an onside kick.
Another thing about the onside kick that I wanted to say, and I guess we can kind of get into a little bit of the game flow because at that point it was 30-0. I mean, we had already
Mhm.
put this opponent away. You could have argued at that moment we should have already benched the starters. Kent State at that time didn't have a first down. It was the first quarter; they hadn't gotten a first down yet.
I
That
think they had
onside,
negative yards still.
they had negative yards. It was like negative 20 yards to like 300 yards, dude. It was unbelievable. So people are like, yeah, why an onside kick? To me, it's pretty obvious. Like you said, in-game rep. That's a good point. And then number 2 point is to put it on tape, dude. Now other teams have to respect the onside
Hmm.
kick at any moment. You
Hmm.
have to respect that now. And you put that on tape against a team like Kent State where it's zero risk, dude. You're not risking anything. You're like, okay, we're up 30-0. We have no chance to lose this game. Let's put this onside kick on tape so teams in SEC play have to now account for that potential onside kick. That's why you
That's a
do it.
great
You're
point.
not running up the score. It was never about running up the score. It's about putting it on tape, getting the rep in the game. Um, and dude, yeah, I mean that's genius, dude, to do that right before
Yeah,
conference play.
yeah.
And I don't know if you're
So,
okay.
and as I understand it, it might have also been a going back to the in-game rep. Um, it might have been a situational play, right, where the
Yeah.
kicker and the team, as I understand it, because Kent State was giving a lot of space,
Mm-hmm.
and so. By the way, folks, I want to just mention real quick, apologize if during the recording at all, if I freeze, or also if Austin freezes and I don't know how to respond to him. Just a quick little insight. I'm on a military installation right now, so my Wi-Fi uh, is quite terrible.
Yeah, it's
So
not that great.
uh,
It's all right.
it's
We're
quite
getting
terrible.
through
So
it.
yeah, I apologize for any freezes or anything like that. But yeah, man, it's so that's a great point. So anyway, so yeah, let's talk about, so walk us through before we get into just kind of breaking down offense and defense. Walk us through a little bit, kind of the overall. We already started talked about takeaways. What are the overall takeaways, and what are the overall kind of stat lines that you wanted to kind of call out?
Um, well, I had some individual players I want to talk about in a little bit. Um, I think the other thing I want to talk about was there was a couple plays I found a little interesting. Jacoby Thomas had a huge hit. I think it was it was in the second quarter. That got called targeting. I thought it was a terrible targeting call. I thought it was a super clean hit. It looked like targeting because he hit the dude so hard. So dude's like head snapped back, but there was actually no helmet to helmet contact from what I saw. But thankfully, he's going to be back for the Oklahoma game. He got kicked out of the Kent State game, but since it was in the second quarter, he'll be back. I thought that was interesting. Um, and then the stats, dude. I mean, there's a lot of stats that came out of this game that are just staggering. Just to talk about how dominant the game performance was and how dominant Tennessee has been this season. And one thing, because you were talking about earlier how people are saying it's the opponent, look, it's Kent State. One point I'll make in regard to that is how many teams in college football could put up 65 on Kent State at the half? How many teams could do
Right.
that? Because like 99% of teams can beat Kent State. I totally concede that. Dude, they scored 24 on Pitt just a couple weeks ago, 55-24. Yes, that's a blowout. It's not 65-0 at the half. I mean, I'm thinking at full strength, there's probably 4 to 5 teams in the country that could do what we did to Kent State. Because people, it's Kent State. Dude, Penn State couldn't do this to Kent State. Like, there are good top 10, top 15 teams that legitimately could not put up the numbers that we did at Kent State. And just to talk about some of those numbers, and you already alluded to some, 37 points in the first quarter. That's the most points in a quarter in program history. Literally program history. Most in a quarter. 65 points and a half. Most since the AP poll air started in 1937 by Tennessee. Most points and a half. And it was actually close to an FBS record as well. I believe the FBS record for most points and a half is 70.
Wow.
Yep, 740 total yards in the game. That's a all-time record for Tennessee. What's interesting is second on that list is Josh Heupel led 2022 Vols versus Missouri, 724 yards, which is interesting. I mean, Heupel is just crushing all these records. He's like breaking his own records at this point. It's just ridiculous, dude. 71 points in a game is the most by Tennessee since the AP poll era, which again is 1937, and actually it's the most since 1929. Which, I mean, dude, we're talking about records that have stood for almost 100 years, dude.
That's wild.
It's wild. And then the yearly stats. These are some of the yearly things I want to shout out. Just overall, the last couple of games. First of all, the FBI, ESPN's FBI, currently has us ranked number 4th. Or 4th in the country. Do you know who's number 5?
Alabama.
Georgia Bulldogs. We are ranked above the Georgia Bulldogs in the FBI currently. Just saying. That's
not Austin.
No, it's the FBI, dude. I'm just talking about the FBI.
It's just the numbers.
It's just the numbers, brother. And yeah, Georgia was on the struggle bus this weekend. FPI gives the Vols a 73% chance at this point to make the college football playoff. 73%. Pretty insane. Okay, so these are some of the defensive stats. So 4 games without giving up a touchdown. Blake, question for you since you're the historical guy. Do you know the last time we've went 4 straight games without giving up a defensive touchdown?
I am guessing it was when we went unscored upon in, I believe it was 38 or 39.
This guy. Yep, on the money. The last time we went 4 consecutive games without giving up a touchdown was 1938 through 1939 when General Neyland didn't give up a touchdown for 15 consecutive games, dude. 15 consecutive games.
And if I'm not mistaken, 38 was the last season, the last regular season that a team went unscored upon in the regular season.
Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable stat. Yeah, it's why. First of all, that's a stat that will never be broken. And second of all, I mean, dude, we're talking about something that happened in the 1930s, man, and we've done it in the modern era. 4 games. That's insane. So the point differential. Actually, let me bring this up first. In this season alone, just the last 3 games this season, the defense has given up 6 total points. Guess how many points they've scored? 9. So they've scored more points than they've given up. Okay, I don't care who the competition is, dude. That's insane. That's unheard of. It's literally 1985 Bears level defensive play, dude. It's unbelievable. So the point differential, we've currently outscored this season opponents 191-13. Okay, that 178 margin of victory in 3 games is the largest in SEC history. The largest in SEC history. And it's the second most by any team, FBS teams, in the AP poll era, dude. The second most. Most in SEC history. And the second most all time. That is, dude, that level of dominance is unbelievable, dude. Some of the greatest teams ever didn't put up that level of dominance in the first 3 games. That just speaks to how dominant this team has been. Since the Iowa game, it's been 234 to 13 points, if you include the Iowa game, since Nico started. Um, so, okay, this is another interesting one. Through 3 games in 2024, we've put up 191 points. In 2022, we only put up 156 points through 3 games, and that's,
Wow.
that was the best game or the best season we've had in years. And last one I've got, only the second ever SEC team to put up 50 plus points in the first 3 games. The other SEC team was 2018 Alabama, who was the runner up for the national championship.
And though that folks, that is just the numbers. That's just the
It's
numbers.
Dude, it's
It's
just the
it's
numbers.
it's just
It
the numbers. And as I said last week in the Kent State preview, the numbers don't lie. And
I mean,
so
clearly.
clearly they don't lie. And so, but and here's what's so awesome about those stats, bro. And I saw that one, about the 178 point victory differential through 3 games being the most in SEC history. Let's talk about this, right? Because everyone's going to say Kent State. Everyone's going to say Chattanooga. Everyone's going to say NC State is not as good as we thought they were. Yes, yes, yes. But um, so most our highest victory margin in SEC history through
Correct.
3 games. That includes your Alabamas of years past, your
Exactly.
LSU that won the national championship event, and guess what? They play cupcake teams the first few weeks as well, right? With usually a decent non-conference opponent sprinkled in the first couple weeks, right? So this like now we're comparing to other. It's not just Tennessee program records. We're comparing to SEC teams, and so yes, this includes Alabama, who plays Western Alabama or whatever cupcake school they play, in the first few weeks of the season, right? So yes, we get it. We get the competition has not been good. We're going to know a lot more once we play Oklahoma. But the point is these numbers don't lie.
Hmm. Yeah, dude. And at this point, I don't care about the competition because the level of dominance is on such another level that the competition doesn't matter. And let's not forget, I mean, people are going to rewrite the history. NC State was a top 25 team going into the
Right.
season and when we played them. So that doesn't matter. Now, with all this being said, yes, the team needs to perform. But the point is, we're trying to project out. We're trying to take, okay, the 3-0 start. Because we could have started 3-0 a lot of different ways, dude. We could have started 3-0 a lot of different ways. We could have had blowouts to Chattanooga and Kent State. Maybe not to the level that we did, but we could have blown those teams out and had a close game with NC State. We'd still be 3-0. It'd still be 3-0. But, dude, the performance matters, dude. The performance matters. When you have teams who struggle against bad opponents, that is going to show up later in the season. But when you have a team who is dominating, any team that's less talented than them, they're just dominating like that, like we have, dude. More than likely, that team is going to be a really solid football team the rest of the season. Like we're just trying to project out, okay, what does this 3-0 record mean? What does this level of dominance mean? We're literally breaking records that have stood for almost 100 seasons. What does that mean? And I think it means, dude, that we have a really good football team, like a really, really good football team. Now, some of these things aren't sustainable. The defensive stats are not sustainable the rest of the season. That's going to regress. But I don't think it's crazy to say this is the best football team we've had in literal years, dude, in decades. Now,
Yeah.
do they live up to the potential? We'll see. I mean, they have to go out and perform in these games, but on paper, the eye test, everything is telling me this is the most dominant Tennessee football team that we've had in decades, dude. Since I'm saying the '90s former teams, since those teams, that's how dominant this team is.
And it's hard not to be excited about that. Right? It's hard not to be excited, when we are looking at these kinds of performances. And so Yeah, man, it's a great place to be, and we're gonna preview the Oklahoma game in the next episode. So be sure to tune in for that. We'll talk a little bit more about specifically about the Oklahoma preview, but I do want to say real quick that yes, like we will know so much more once
Yeah.
we go to Norman next week, right? We're going to know more. And yes, unfortunately, that defensive streak is probably going to end, right? They're probably going to give up a touchdown. Now, I'd love for them to not give up a touchdown until maybe the second quarter or even the third quarter, and maybe they extend that by quarter streak a little bit longer. But yes, we're going to be tested next week, yeah. But man, at the end of the day, Kent State Golden Flashes, yeah, it's Kent State, but these numbers that we put up, that it's hard not to be excited about how good this football team is. So,
Yep.
and the fact that it's both sides of the ball, right? And because we all had this question about the defense with Heupel's offensive genius, and with the high flying, high octane offense, can the defense keep up? And so far it is, at least this year, and so that's great. So let's talk real quick about kind of what we saw from the offense first, and then we'll talk about what we saw from the defense. Anything you want to kind
So,
of highlight from the offense? I'd love to talk about before we even talk about freaking Nico. I'd love to talk about Dylan
oh,
Sampson
dude, he
with
was first on
four
my list to
touchdowns.
talk about. He was first on my.
I
I wasn't
figured
even
he
going to talk
was.
about Nico because, dude, you said going at reviewing the NC State game, you said Dylan Sampson's going to work his way in the Heisman conversation. He should already be there after the first three games, dude. He's on pace to destroy the Tennessee single season record for touchdowns. I could have my numbers wrong. I meant to double check this, but I believe the record is 18 touchdowns, and he's at
18. Yeah,
9. He's at
yeah,
9
he's already
through
halfway
three
through
games, bro.
3 games.
He could break that in the midseason mark, dog. Like, he is absolutely
He could
insane.
push for Derrick Henry. Crazy, but he could push for Derrick Henry's record of 24, which
Oh,
I believe is the most in the SEC
100%.
in a season.
100% he could break that record. At this point, Dylan Sampson should 100% be in the Heisman conversation. He is ahead of Nico for me right now in the Heisman conversation. I don't think that's crazy to say. I think Dylan
I
Sampson
like it.
has
I love to
played.
hear it.
Yeah, dude, he's played that well. He tied a record for most touchdowns and a half by a Tennessee player for 4 last game, tied with 6 other players. And dude, it's just a consistency. The dude is consistently running hard. Again, making that first guy miss every time he touches the ball. His patience, dude. They were talking about his patience on the broadcast. There was this one play where he was following this block and he just like followed this guy slow, 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 and then once he finally made the block, he just shot through the hole. Man, it was just beautiful, dude. So Samson, dude, 100% should be in the Heisman conversation at this point. His backup, I gotta shout out the backup, the Sean Bishop, dude. The Sean
Yeah, he had a
Bishop,
great game.
oh, dude, absolutely. He has solidified himself as RB2 at this point. Going into the
Mm.
season, I didn't even know if he was going to be RB4. Like he was, I thought he might be buried on the depth chart. Frankly, I thought Peyton Lewis and Cam Seldon would be ahead of him, but he's clearly earned that number 2 position at this point. So he had a couple explosive runs, dude. Just like I think he had back-to-back carries for like massive touchdowns. Technically, it wasn't like back-to-back plays, but it was back-to-back carries, and it was just explosive, man. He hits the hole and he goes. So I had to shout him out. Also, I think Blake is frozen right now, so I'm just going to keep talking. And then Chris Brazzell, man. I think he's going to solidify himself as wide receiver number 1. He looks like wide receiver number 1 right now. He got behind the defense on that one beautiful throw by Nico. So I think when it's all said and done at the end of the season, he's going to have the most receiving yards out of all those receivers. And then the last guy I have to shout out on offense is Mike
Kitselman?
Matthews. Nope,
Oh,
no.
Mike Matthews.
Kitselman played great in NC State, dude. That dude can play,
Yeah,
and he's
yeah,
going to be a problem. But Mike Matthews, man, Mike Matthews played
yeah.
early in the game. He got like a screen on like the second drive, I think. And then he had that beautiful touchdown catch, dude, from Gaston Moore, man, right before the half to go up 65-0, which is ridiculous. But I mean, he caught the ball in the air, and then he literally got nailed. Like, I mean, it was a good play by the defender. It doesn't matter if it's Kent State or not. It was a good play. It's a very hard contested catch to make. And he came down with it, man. He plays bigger than he is. He plays really big, and he's extremely fast. So I was excited to finally see him get some reps and play. So yeah, man, those are the kind of the 4 dudes or 5 dudes that I noticed on offense that I thought had a really good game.
Yeah. For our offense, for sure. Just what I love too is just the balance, right? And I 100% agree with you that Dylan Sampson, it'll be absolutely disrespectful if people are not at least talking about him in the conversation. I'm not saying he's a front runner for Heisman, but he needs to be in the conversation. And my internet quality is
Yeah, you're freezing up quite a bit.
um, yeah, I don't know if I'm coming through properly. So again, folks, apologies. Don't have the best connection right now, but we'll be back to the regularly scheduled programming next week. But yeah, so Dylan Sampson would be disrespectful. He's not if he's not in the Heisman conversations. But man, it's just the balance on this team. Everybody's getting involved in this offense,
Yeah.
and I love to see it.
Yeah, dude, totally. I mean, it helps when you're up 65-0. You can get a lot of guys in, and everybody got reps.
True, that's true.
But
true.
but dudes are looking good too, man. I mean, it is such a deep wide receiver core, man. It's I don't know if anyone has really shown that they can be like a difference maker wide receiver, like a true difference, like kind of like Jalen Hyatt, frankly, to put up numbers like him, But dude, they have a lot of really good guys, like a lot of really good dudes, like Dante Thornton, Chris Brazzell, Brew, of course, and Squirrel. Squirrel's starting to make plays. So I mean, and then Nimrod was making plays, and then Mike Matthews finally shows potential. Like it's, or not finally, he finally gets to play. He obviously has a ton of potential, but he finally gets some reps, and then the running back room is super deep. Dude, we roll like 10 deep on the offensive line that they rotate offense. They didn't even play Lance Hurd in the game. Apparently Lance Hurd was completely fine, but they just rested him up for the Oklahoma game. That's like, dude, big fella, just stay healthy, man. Just, don't worry about this one.
Or they're trying to let Kent State stay healthy so they can get bullied.
Poor Kent State. Yeah, I wish I would have talked to... go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, yeah, and maybe this is what you're going to talk about, but let's talk real quick since we're talking about the offense and how much we scored. We scored 65 points going into halftime, and as I understand it, we offered them a running game clock.
Correct.
I offered it, and they declined, which, I mean, power to them, right? I mean, I love the mentality, I guess, but. I mean, respect to the Golden Flashes.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta respect the Golden Flashes. I would say they played hard, but they really did. I mean, I respect them for staying out there.
They held us to 6 points in the second half.
That's fair. I mean, listen, dude. I don't know what you tell your team at halftime down 65-0. Like, you can't tell them to you can't coach them up. You can't be like, oh, dude, you missed the block. Yeah, I missed the block. I'm facing a dude who's about to be in the NFL in 8 weeks. Yeah, of course I'm missing blocks. I don't even know how you coach the guys. But they declined the running clock. Interesting decision. I think Heupel cleared out the roster, dude. I mean, he was playing 5th string, 6th string players. But yeah, man. Again, respect Kent State. They just didn't have the personnel, bro. They did not have the personnel.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. And then I guess I'll shout out some defensive guys too. Last guy on the offense. Actually, I wanted to shout out Gaston Moore, bro. Gaston Moore was playing Kent State, but he looked good, man. He looked sharp.
He had a dime. He
did. To Dante Thornton.
Thornton.
Yeah. So yeah, man, he looked really well, or he looked really good. So had to shout him out as well. And then some defensive guys. James Pierce, man. James Pierce really had his best game, which, again, level of competition, but he finally showed up. Or I won't say he finally showed up. I mean, he didn't even play in a Chattanooga game, basically, and he didn't play terribly in the NC State game, but he had a dominant game from a pass rush standpoint, even though he didn't get a sack. It won't show up in the stat sheet. He had 3 pressures on only 8 pass rush snaps, so almost 50% pressure rate, which is ridiculous. So yeah, he might not be getting the sacks, but he's getting pressure. He's making an impact on the game, and plus, when you have literally 8 other guys who are making plays on a consistent basis, like Omari Thomas, Norman Lott, like there's so many guys who are making plays. Dominic Bailey, Bryson East. I mean, on the D line. So I mean, we have an embarrassment of riches on the defensive line, dude. It's the best defensive line in the country, in my opinion, dude. I really believe that. It's us in Georgia. That's really the competition. And then Keenan Pili, man, dude, he has made such a difference on the defense, bro. He's made such a huge difference. He's just flying to the ball, dude. You can see his athleticism. He's so fast. On the first botch snap, that's another thing I forgot to talk about, is all the botch snaps by poor Kent State, bro. They threw about 6 snaps over the quarterback's head. Dude was having a rough game. But I mean, I don't blame him. I'd be nervous too, having to block those guys. So, but dude, on the first botch snap, dude, Keenan Pili was right on top of the quarterback once he recovered it. Man, he was just flying to the ball all night. Of course, he didn't have to play the whole game, but I really think he's going to be a huge difference. We've really been missing a great middle linebacker for a long time, and we have a history of great middle linebackers. So, really glad to.
You yeah, you talked about that in the season preview. You
Yep.
talked about the linebackers, and you talked about how they could be difference makers on the defense, right? And they were kind of a bit of a question mark coming into the season. But you talked about Peely, you talked about Aaron Carter, all these
Yep. 100%, dude. 100%.
far they've so far they have been on the right side of that question mark that we had at the beginning of the season.
I totally agree. I think they absolutely have been on the right side of that question mark, and then the secondary has been on the right side of the question mark, dude. It's listen, the competition we're going to really see from the secondary. I think it's still the biggest question mark, of course, from the team. I mean, you can't just throw out all your priors based on 3 ball games. So I get that, but at the same time, dude, I think they have stepped up massively. The transfer, McCoy, dude, he has played lights out, man. He made a couple good plays in man coverage against Kent State. And so who knows, man? I don't think the secondary is going to be great this season, but if they're good, with the defensive line we have, which is clearly great. I mean, it's all time great. And the offense we have, obviously, I mean, this is such a dangerous football team. And we're going to see in conference play how the secondary holds up. We've got a big test next week, which, of course, we'll talk about on that preview show. But so, yeah, man, those are the guys I want to shout out on defense. And then I just also want to shout out all the backups, bro. I mean, the backups played hard the entire game. I mean, we were up 65-0 at halftime. Dude, there's no reason from a win-loss standpoint to continue to try your hardest in that game unless there's a culture around that building that says, hey, each snap is a new snap. You treat each snap like it's 0-0, and you just play to your standard every single snap. So many coaches say that, play to your standard, play to your standard. Tennessee has actually played to their standard quarter 1 through quarter 4 for all 3 games of the season, dude. And if they can keep that up, this team's limit is national championship. That's the bottom line, dude. If they can keep it up.
That's the bottom line. The sky's the limit. I mean, and you make a great point, man. Like that's so important. You know, in these games that we're heavily favored. Probably what teams that's probably what teams did in the past, when we would lose to these teams or struggle with these teams is, oh, it's just Troy, it's just Akron, it's just Georgia Southern, and and then they cruise and then you're playing with fire, right? And so
Exactly.
yeah, it's like every snap you're playing your hardest. So absolutely, man, it's a great. great team effort. And yeah, man, it's just, couldn't uh, we couldn't have asked for much more in the Kent State game.
No.
You alluded to this in the beginning. If we hadn't taken out our starter, I mean, we took out
Oh, it was in the second quarter when we
time.
took out the
We
starters.
Yeah, and so if we hadn't taken out our starters, you're looking at a 100 plus points scored football game.
Easily.
Um, Easily from one side. I'm not talking about total points. I'm talking
Mm.
about Tennessee scoring 100 points or more in a football game, which would have been cool to see. Maybe that's my
Yeah.
only complaint.
Yeah, because you're not going to get many opportunities to do something like that.
Yeah. I mean, shoot. I mean, heck, probably could have scored 100 by the third quarter and sat the starters in the fourth quarter.
It's
I
true.
mean, you know. So
It's also
yeah,
nuts,
man.
man. It's just to speak. We've spoken on the dominance a lot of this team so far, but dude, Nico hasn't played in a fourth quarter of a football game yet, man. Like that's
Which is
that's
kind of scary because I kind of need him to get some fourth quarter reps. Like I
yeah.
need
Oh
him to
yeah.
because the pressure's going to be coming soon.
We'll talk about it, man. I got a lot to say about Oklahoma and their stupid fans, but
Oh,
got a lot
oh,
to say. I'll get into it. We'll save that for the next podcast. But
bro.
we got some fans to talk about. Some idiot fans, um,
Oh my
in
goodness.
Oklahoma. And dude, there's I'm telling you,
We
man.
we 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 tried to remain respectful of the Golden Flashes. Um,
Oh, I like the Golden
and
Flashes, man. I like the Golden Flashes, but not the Sooners. We'll get into it next episode.
okay, okay, all right. Well, with that being said, y'all, I think that's a perfect segue. We do have a game preview of the Oklahoma game coming up. So this episode should be dropping Monday morning at 10 a.m. Right, Austin? Is that correct?
Yep, should be.
And then we will drop the Oklahoma preview on 10 a.m.
Yep,
So just a
Thursday,
heads
10
up.
a.m.
Yes, heads up to everyone, current subscribers, new subscribers. We are aiming to drop new episodes of the Vol Talk podcast every Monday and Thursday at 10 a.m. So,
Yep.
man, those are some strong words coming from my brother. Talking about those fans. So I'm looking forward to that on this preview because man, we were already we didn't want to be disrespectful to the Kent State Golden Flashes, and we kind of were. Maybe it was mostly me. Um, we were trying to be good to them,
Hey,
and it was
hey, they
tough.
got they got 1.3 million, man. They're doing all right.
They got a hefty payday, so yeah, they're doing just fine. But man, fun game. Shout out to the Kent State Golden Flashes. Shout out to Michael, my buddy Michael, Kent State alum. Okay, hey, shout out to old Nicholas Saban. Maybe he's finally found the Wall Talk podcast. Um, hey man, appreciate your alma mater coming out to Neyland. Um, we Another team of yours is coming out to Neyland in a few weeks, and we'll look forward to seeing them as well.
Ugh.
Any final thoughts, Sten, before we close out
I mean,
Kent State review?
F Nick Saban, man. That's all I gotta say about that.
Ooh, man, Austin is fired up. He is
Oh,
ready
I
for the
am fired up,
upcoming
baby.
season.
It's conference play now, baby. It's a
It
whole
is
nother ball
conference.
game, and I can't
We're headed
wait
into
to
conference
shut these
play.
idiots up, man. I can't wait,
Ooh.
dude. Y'all played Houston, bro. Do you know what we would have done to Houston? Anyway, we'll get into it next episode.
Y'all, Austin is fired up. You better tune in for the Oklahoma preview coming up Thursday at 10 a.m. Thank y'all for checking out the Vol Talk podcast. Again, like, subscribe, comment, share the video. We really appreciate y'all, and we will look forward to seeing y'all in the next episode. Thanks, y'all. Bye.
GBO.